Okay, hello and welcome back. If this is your first time, we're hoping it's not your last time. Thanks for being with us on the third installment of the Transformative Leader book study. As always, I've been looking forward to this as we have been getting together. We are more and more excited about getting together with this community. There's just something about the interactions and the conversations that really make a difference. So a couple of things that I just want to really cover very quickly, and most of you are familiar with the drill. Essentially what's happening is that we are also live streaming on Facebook. So if you're joining us on Facebook, thanks for being here. And we are going to monitor Facebook as well. And if you have any comments, go ahead and participate. We've got Naveed and Nasim who are helping with kind of monitoring the chat box and that sort of thing. So you can put your questions and comments in the chat box. That would be fantastic. And yeah, and we're going to get into this conversation. I'm going to stop from time to time so we can we can address your questions, but keep those coming, and the comments. If you see somebody else put a comment in, please, this is a community thing. This is something that is for all of us to participate and contribute to one another. So let's do that and get involved. And so the first question I have for you is if you were able to practice some of the things that we talked about the last time. We talked about what is your life made up of, and the fact that while we have things in our life, our experience of life is actually shaped by our thoughts and our words and our actions and our habits, which then form our character and ultimately determine our destiny. We also talked about keeping the passion and ditching the drama, which is something that I literally had to remind myself of about 10 minutes ago as we were frantically trying to actually try a different setup for our Wi-Fi, which hasn't really been cooperating with us. So I think we're okay, but if we have some issues, then we'll just deal with it as we go. And so those were the topics of last part of this book study. So just go ahead and put in the chat for me if you could. Were you able to practice some of this? Did some of that show up for you? Were you able to do some of the stuff that were suggested in the recommended actions? All right. All right, so Jill says yes, shared the tip about counting when having negative thoughts. All right, thanks, Jill, appreciate that. Mark, yes, used tools in meeting to drive more positive discussions. And I assume that worked out well for you, Mark. Thanks for that. And Francine is saying, I've had to read the Passion versus Drama chapter more than once to help keep me focused. It has helped me so much. I tell you what, since I wrote that chapter, I've read it probably 20 times. And I have to remind myself over and over and over again, there's no finish line. Drama shows up. And Jill also says that she shared the passion versus drama example and need to get to re-listen to it again. Yes, that would be great. And so this is the point. I think this, what's coming up here in your comments is a really critical point, in that it is not knowing a certain topic that necessarily brings that experience in your life, right? Because what happens is, you know, exercise is good for you. You know, you should have passion and not drama. You know a lot of things. But what it takes to actually put it into practice is something different. It's that constant reinforcement. It's falling off and then getting back on, and it's having people around you who speak the language, who are willing to coach you and support you. So this is an ongoing thing that really needs to happen. And in fact, those are the kinds of things that my team and I are focusing on, to make sure that we bring you the experience, that experience of ongoing support. You know, we've mentioned on the court leadership on this call, and many of you have gotten on the wait list for that. We can't wait to unveil that for you. In fact, later on this call, you'll be the first ones who are going to see sort of what we're doing with that. But that's a mechanism for us to continue to share with you guys. So thanks for that. I appreciate the comments. So just to remind you, what we are going to do also is, even though we are going to stop the session at 12 o'clock, we're going to stop the recording, and we'll hang around for 20, 30 minutes. So if anybody wants to and can hang around and have a deeper conversation, if you want to talk about the things that we talked about today or the last time or any other topic, I'm available for you and would be happy to engage in that conversation with you. So we're going to do that. And so today's topic, the first 1-point lesson that we're going to talk about is actually the first 1-point lesson, 1-point lesson number 1, which is titled, "Don't settle for just managing change. Take on leading a transformation." Now, this is on page 83 of the book. Now, this 1-point lesson is the first 1-point lesson on purpose, because it's really important to start by boldly declaring something. Because otherwise, when we talk about resilience and when we talk about keeping the passion and ditching the drama, if you don't have some context for something big you're going for, or some commitment that you have, then it's just you'll get motivated and then you'll get demotivated. But what you want to do is you want to have something that you plug into that every single time you get off track, you can remind yourself of what that future is that you're really committed to and get energized by it. Now, I normally cover this chapter or this topic in my workshops in the context of what organizations can do. In other words, I make a distinction between change and transformation, and then essentially focus on how organizations can create a transformative vision that they're excited about, and that way kind of work back from there and make sure that that guides their steps. However, I want to take a slightly different approach today. I want to talk about this topic from the standpoint of not just an organizational vision, but something, a future that you are hopeful about. Because at the end of the day, what happens is that what shapes your state of mind in the present moment, like where you are right now, whether you are feeling a certain emotion, negative or positive, whether you're hopeful or not, whether you're disappointed and all of this, a lot of that has to do with what you expect in the future. Now it's true that what's happening right now or what has happened in the past impacts us, right? Certainly, we've had this pandemic behind us right now. It's right with us right now. We've had a lot of people who are losing their jobs and all of this. But let me tell you something. If I had a magic wand right now and I said, look, and let's just say you really trusted this magic wand, this green magic wand. If I said, look, I'm going to wave this magic wand, and as of tomorrow, the pandemic will be gone, your job will be restored, you'll get a 20% pay raise, and all of this kind of stuff. And if you really, really believed in a future like that, for a moment, just work with me. Wouldn't that shift your state in the present moment? I mean, like, no matter what has happened in the past or what's happening right now, if you are hopeful about tomorrow, it makes a huge difference for you. And so that's the essence of this lesson. It's the fact that the worst thing that can happen to us is not what has already happened or what's happening. We do what we need to do to deal with whatever's going on. The worst thing that can happen is hopelessness. It's when we lose hope and we're not really driving for something that we're excited about. So when we talk about change versus transformation, basically change starts with what has been and what is, and we aim to solve the problems, and what I call like playing whack-a-mole with our problems, right? And you whack this one and then you whack that one and the same one pops up again. You solve the same problem over and over again. And while problem solving and improvements and making changes are absolutely a necessary part of life, they don't necessarily amount to a transformation that you can be excited about. So let me read a little bit from the book on page 83. So I say in the book, good leaders are great at change management, but great leaders don't stop there. They have to be good at change management, but they don't stop there. They go way beyond managing change. They lead transformations. The difference between managing change and leading a transformation goes far beyond simple semantics. And here again, I'm talking about leaders, but each of us is a leader in our life, in our personal life, in our professional life. You are leading something or somebody. For the purpose of this book, I say, I'd ask you to consider that transformation is different from change, just as leadership is different from management. Now, on page 86, I give you this figure, hopefully everybody's seen it, where change basically is showing up as you standing in the present moment, looking into some distant future that you don't really know what looks like. And the only thing that's real clear to you in that model is all of the stuff that's in front of you, all the problems that you have to solve. But transformation is when you sort of create this picture of the future that you're living into, and then looking back from there, you identify a few things that need to be done to make that happen. And you know what? Solving problems and all of that is part of that. But change is different than transformation in the following ways. So I'm back on page 83. Change starts with something we don't like. As we try to change what we don't like, we meet all kinds of resistance because of the beliefs we have always had. Now, transformation inspires us to influence our environment and go for something big rather than just tweaking what we don't like. Change acts on us. Transformation causes us to act on our circumstances. Change is reactive. And again, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with change. Sometimes you simply need to react. But transformation is proactive. Couple more. Change is short-term focused. Solve that problem right now. Transformation often produces immediate results, but in the context of what matters most in the long run. So I'm on page 84. Finally, change starts with the outside and is often forced upon us. Transformation starts from the inside, and it is often driven by us being inspired by what's possible. And so I want to also remind you that, in my opinion at least, every transformation involves change. If you say, look, I don't like change, you're not going to be very transformative. So every transformation involves change, but not all change amounts to a transformation. Okay. So let's just kind of go with this and play this out. Let me give you a couple of examples. I say in the book on page 84, would you believe that the main motivation for inventing cars was to eliminate pollution caused by horse droppings? Like, this is true. And you know what? That change that was made actually solved that problem. But you know what? It created a bigger one. And so generally, if you're only focusing on solving problems, sometimes the solution to that very problem creates a side effect. And sometimes it's even worse than the original problem, right? You may have seen the commercials on TV where they advertise the various drugs, and by law, they're required to tell you what those side effects are at the end. And sometimes those side effects are scary. They sound even worse than the original problem that the drug was going to solve. And so these are just a couple of examples of change versus transformation. Now, so what do we do with this? At the end of the day, basically what it comes down to is to make sure that while you're solving problems and addressing issues and things like that, that you have one or two things that you're really excited about your future. And here again, you can apply this personally or professionally. right? What is it that if I woke you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, assuming you don't work night shift and you're asleep at that time, can you tell me within a few seconds what you're excited about? Right now, if you don't have one of those, I don't want you to feel condemned, but I do want to compel you to be on this inquiry, to figure out what that is for you. In what ways do you want to make a difference? What is that future you want to create? It might have to do with your own success. It might have to do with making a contribution to somebody else, but something that gets you up in the morning, right? Because at the end of the day, it's this old story that's on the internet that I've seen many times about those two bricklayers, right? So you ask one of them, what are you doing? I'm laying bricks. What are you doing? I'm building a cathedral. You know what? They're both doing the same job, but one is doing it in the context of something much bigger than himself. And so this is why it's really important for you. You know, Simon Sinek calls it the big why. There are many, many ways that this has been expressed, this idea. But what I would encourage you is think about at your job, you know, in your career, in your family. What are some of the transformative sort of things that you can do? What is that transformative vision that you want to create? And I know in our life, personally, my life has been enriched by the fact that my wife is, you know, even though I do all this teaching and preaching and all that, she's the one who consistently practices transformative leadership in our life. And so by doing that, she has transformed our health, our spiritual well-being, our mental well-being, and many, many things, our finances. Why? Because she was looking at our situation in various aspects of our life in various times in our life. And she was like, you know what, this is just not good enough. And so she'd go and find the resource and would go get behind it and take some action. And before you know it, you know, we are in a much better place. So you don't have to set a transformative vision to be something like end world hunger and all of this. Now, if you want to do that, more power to you. That's great, right? Because what happens is when you set your sights on a commitment, your life, and we said what your life is made up of, right? Your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your habits. So your life begins to expand to fill that space. When you give yourself to a bigger cause, a transformative future, you'll see that your thoughts begin to expand, your words begin to expand, your actions begin to expand. And then all of a sudden you find all of these resources all around you that you didn't see before. And so my encouragement to you is identify something, some aspect of your life, personal or professional or both, and set your sights on a transformative vision. And then go to work on finding the resources and beginning to explore what it takes to make it happen. It is so much fun because even while you're on that journey, even if you haven't really made it happen, because you're living in that future, you actually experience being there now. I'll give you a very simple example actually of this, you know, living into that future. Many years ago, my family and I took a really nice vacation to Cancun. We were there, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. But the thing about this vacation was this. About a year before we actually took the trip, I had some airline miles that were going to expire. And they told me, they said, look, you can make the reservation as far as 1 year out. But if you don't make the reservation now, then they will expire. I said, okay. So I made the reservation for 2 of us, and we went ahead and bought the other 2 tickets about 11 months in advance. And I tell you, I recommend this to anybody. If you're going to take a vacation, plan it way in advance, because I think we enjoyed that vacation many, many times before we actually went on the vacation, right? So every day it was like, oh man, in about 10.5 months, we're going to be on that beach. It's going to be so awesome. Oh, in about 6 months, we're going to be there. It is really great to be able to look forward to something. And you'll be amazed how it changes the conversation that you have with yourself in here, as well as your conversation with others. Now, one of the reasons I've promised at some point to tell you all why these things don't happen, right? Because all of this stuff sounds really good, but why is it that we don't do it? And it's because we are afraid that if we go for something big and we don't make it happen, or we don't hit the mark, that we're going to be disappointed. And so this is where, there's a saying, I don't even remember who said it now, but they said the problem is not that you aim high and you miss. The problem is you aim low and you hit. And this is because we don't want to be disappointed. What if I make a big declaration for myself? What if I tell everybody it's going to be like this? What if I get excited and I'm let down? Well, guess what? Here's the thing. Do it anyway. Because there are two reasons for that. One is that if you have a transformative vision and you're excited about something, I guarantee you that you're going to move the needle. Maybe you don't hit it, but you move the needle anyway. But secondly, as I've mentioned a couple of times already, just by going for that future, you immediately shift your experience of life in every moment. So that's where this lesson really comes in. So let me read the bottom line to you real quick on page 89, and then I'll stop to see if we have any questions or comments. I would really love to hear from you if you've had this experience and it's worked for you, if you can think of some nuances where you feel like, hey, you know what? Yeah, sure, but we need to consider this as well. Or if you have some questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat box. And we'll go from there. So bottom line on page 89 says, managing change is good for fixing and improving some aspects of the current circumstances. This is often sufficient to produce the results we are looking for, but it doesn't carry the day when we intend to create a step change. Now, again, I want to emphasize, this is often sufficient to produce the results that we're looking for, because in 90% of the situations, change works. Fix this, repair this, address that issue. It works. But you ought to at least have one or two things that you want to transform. So I go on to say, leading a transformation involves change, but it starts with the desired future and gives the leader a whole new perspective. Okay, so let me pause here. I want to go through the reflection questions and recommended follow-up actions as well. But let me pause for a moment and see, let's hear from you guys, because, look, I'm leading this book study, but I'm not suggesting that I am the authority on this stuff and all this. Many of you, I have so much respect for you. You got all kinds of experience. You're leaders, you're making things happen. So I know that this community is going to benefit from your perspective. So let me hear from you in the chat box, please, and see what your experience has been with this, or if you have any questions. Even if you don't have any questions, think about a question that somebody else might have that we might be able to answer right here.
So April has raised her hand, and I believe she's unmuted. So April, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, go for it.
Sure. Hi, Amir.
Hello.
In this section of the book, you give an example of a manufacturing plant that was the worst in the company where you lead a transformation.
Yeah.
And you say that at first you realized that you were getting in your own way and that you took a series of steps to get out of your own way. And
Yes.
I'm just kind of curious if you could elaborate on that a little bit, like how you saw, or what you mean by you got in your own way, and then how you got out of it.
Certainly. Yeah. Thank you so much, April. I'm glad our sound and everything is working. It's a wonderful thing when all technology comes together. Thank you for that question. Yeah, this was a scenario that I often talk about. It was one of the experiences in my career where I'd already had a good bit of success, but I kind of felt like I was not prepared for this particular assignment because I was trying everything that I could and nothing was working. And I got to a point where I was really self-righteous, and honestly, looking back, that's what was going on. So, my boss didn't get how awesome I was. The people in the plant didn't trust me. Why didn't they do this and that and the other? And so, you know, I realized this. I remember the day that I realized that I was the problem, because I had an experience. I was going through some training sessions, which was really focused on self-awareness and all of that. And it dawned on me that up to that point in my career, 20 some odd years, I started thinking about my bosses. And I was thinking, man, none of these guys has been really fit to be my boss. I mean, one of them had no emotional intelligence. The other one had no international experience. The other one was not nearly as smart as I was. So it was just like, I always ended up reporting to these knuckleheads. I was like, what the heck? And then it hit me. It was like, look, the common denominator in all of that is me. Whenever I show up in one of those experiences, you know, I'm okay, even though I was a humble guy and supporting people, but deep inside, I was thinking, look, it's not my fault. So it was on that night that I declared myself the barrier. Because what happened was I recognized that all of my problems fell into one of three categories. One, I created them. And believe me, I'd created a bunch of problems. Two, I had been tolerating them. And two, I'd been contributing to them. Or three, I'd been tolerating those problems. So then I went to work. So one of the things that I did was I confessed my sins. I told everybody, I said, look, it's my fault. I take responsibility. I'm the one. It's not about me. Then I began to get other people involved in those areas where we were stuck. I was like, look, I don't have the solutions. I need your help. And so many steps were taken to make sure that I get myself out of the way. Because I was feeling responsible, but at the same time, I didn't have all the solutions and I was trying to do the best that I could, but I was the barrier. So that realization turned into a whole bunch of action that I took to make sure that folks really understood that I recognized I don't want to be in the way. So, and again, I'm happy to talk to you more about this if you want to hang around, and I can give you more specifics. So yeah, we've got a comment coming from Jill as well. And thank you so much, April. I appreciate that. So Jill says, I enjoy having events and vacations to look forward to, and it really does change the outlook when something negative happens. That is true. We are working on our baby steps. Yeah, so Dave Ramsey baby steps, if you are familiar with that, and are planning to have our mortgage paid off by the end of the year. How wonderful and exciting. And so the excitement of that event keeps us focused. Fantastic. So it seems like, Jill, you guys, and I know from having met you guys, is that you and Tyson, that you have this goal, you're excited about it, you're living into it. Wonderful. Sounds really great. Do we have anybody else with a raised hand or any other comments at this point?
No other comments or raised hands, but I did want to say thank you, April, for that. And I'm really excited. At some point we'll talk about On the Court, because I think On the Court, our membership website, is really designed for questions just like that, and to walk you through how do you get yourself out of the way if you find yourself in that position. So we'll talk about that a bit later in the call, but just wanted to plug that a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, thank you. All right, so if you go to the reflection questions on page 90, there are a whole bunch of questions that actually I would say are, most of these appear also at the end of the book in the Transformation Blueprint. So you could answer these reflection questions. You know, do you operate in change mode or transformation mode most of the time? And what area of your business or your life do you want to transform? And what tangible results do you want to get? So if you just kind of skip to the transformation blueprint at the end, that's even more comprehensive. I would really encourage you to do that. If you haven't done so, don't take it for granted that just because you think about your transformation from time to time that you're excited about it. Just sit down and dwell on it a little bit. Write it down. Answer the questions in the transformation blueprint on page 215. And then that will guide your steps. But the recommended actions that I wanted to go over, just highlight a couple of these, is the first one is commit to transforming something in your life. Okay, so once you answer those questions, make a commitment that you are going to transform an aspect of your life. And if you don't want it to be, again, too big, just go ahead and start small, but make it transformative, not just addressing the problem, but creating something new. Next thing I want to highlight in the recommended action steps is make a public declaration and put yourself on the hook. Tell people this is how it's going to be. Like, you know what? Jill is like, I'll be connecting with Jill and Tyson and say, look, how are you guys coming along? Is that, but so she's put herself on the hook. We've done the same thing. We did that for 11 years. We said, look, our house is going to be paid for. We're going to be in baby step number 7, so on and so forth. So do that. And finally, use the transformation that you have chosen to work on as the context for your leadership development. Look, I'd say in the book, use it as the context for reading this book. And so what I'm telling you is that, look, I'm a firm believer that if you want to transform your leadership ability, your ability to influence people, it has to be in the context of something bigger than you. It can't be like, okay, I'm just going to go to a bunch of classes and then learn a bunch of things, and then maybe one day I use it. No. Some of the most successful programs that I put on involve taking on an initiative like immediately, and you learn something, you put it in action, you come back, we talk about it, how did it work for you? And it's amazing. We have this program called the Leadership Academy, which in 3 months delivers extraordinary results. And most importantly, causes people to relate to themselves as the person who delivered those results so they can do it again. And so this part I cannot overemphasize, for you to start with some kind of transformation as the context for developing additional skills and that sort of thing. Okay, so let me pause here before I go to the next lesson, the life lessons from a GPS, lesson 4 on page 103, and see if there are any other questions or raised hands or whatever else we got.
We have a comment from Rosita, and we have a raised hand. I'll read Rosita's comment. Naveed, could you handle Michael's raised hand for me? So Rosita says, my transformative vision is outside of my job, although connected to my career. Sometimes the job gets in the way, especially though during these uncertain times. It's tough to find balance between the two.
Yeah, very true, right? I mean, finding that balance is a challenge. And so for me, it's one of those things that as long as there is a give and take, it could be that, at least from my perspective, sometimes there needs to be heavy emphasis on my professional priorities. And sometimes, although there's a minimum level of self-care and caring for your family, so on and so forth, that's really important. But I think finding that balance over time is really important. But I can definitely relate to what you're saying, Rosita. Thank you for your comment. All right, Michael.
Hey, Amir and everybody else. We're going through some changes by business. We're looking at a business and how we need to make it better, right? You get into the problem solving, you're picking apart, and we got a list of 12, 15 things. We go do these things, and we're going to get better. But just really inspired by this chapter and what you just shared around, let's take a step back and look at, like, where are we going? What do we want it to look like and feel like a year from now, 2 years from now, and really get grounded on that, and then come back to, okay, now if that's the beginning with the end in mind, if that's the end in mind, now are we working on the right things, and are we thinking big enough? Are we thinking large enough? I guess, are there any other suggestions in that regard to the team on what we can do to make sure we're thinking big enough and going after it the right way?
Wonderful, Michael. So great to have you, first of all, and thank you for your comment. I will give you a couple of suggestions here, but first, let me acknowledge that one of the mistakes that I made at the beginning, and to April's point, one of the points that I sort of corrected to get myself out of the way is I wish I had dug up this piece of paper. I may show it to you guys later on. But when I was leading this plant that was the worst plant in the company, and eventually we turned it around to be the best within a year and a half, at the beginning of this journey, I remember I had this one sheet of paper that had literally 35 or so priorities on it. And they were all in these bubbles and they had names and dates. And so literally as a leader of the organization, I was adding no value. I was just basically documenting that we're working on all of these things. And I was so proud of myself. It's like, there's so much clarity who's working on what. But we were working on everything. And so one of the things, again, to April's point earlier, that I did differently to get myself out of the way was I said, look, I really suck at this priority setting thing. I got to get better. So the suggestion I have for you, Michael, is what I advise my clients to do is always sort of put your priorities in 3 categories. One is maintain. What is it that we want to maintain? And there's a certain amount of effort that goes into maintaining certain results. You can't just let it go, even if you're not trying to improve it. The second category is improve. So maintain is like this, do whatever it takes to maintain. Improve is kind of like this, right? You make it better, you put some effort, you put some resources. But then the third category is breakthrough. And that is when you have a step change. And so what I always suggest to my clients is that you should never have more than 1 or 2 breakthrough priorities. Now, I don't care how much capacity you have. Bottom line is you may have leadership capacity to handle 3, 4 different breakthrough priorities, but guess who's going to do the work? The rest of the people in the organization. So they're constantly hit with, hey, this is the number 1 priority of the day. This is the number 1. No. Make it real clear to the organization. What are the 1 or 2 breakthrough priorities that we're all focused on? Look, you know what? We are going to do whatever it takes to maintain certain results, but we're going to put a significant amount of effort in creating this breakthrough sort of step change in these 1 or 2 areas. And everybody in the organization knows. And then whatever other energy you have and resources you have, you put against improve. And so that would be my suggestion. And again, happy to speak with you a little bit more. But thanks for your comment, Michael.
No, that's great.
Appreciate it.
That's fantastic. I don't know if I'm still on. But the clarity on the priorities, because we just get drowned in all the things we need to do, and everything's a priority, and I got to go after everything. But I love let's put some in categories here. You know, we've got to do work just to maintain stuff. We've got to do kind of the regular continuous improvement work in different areas. But what really is going to move the needle? What are those 1 or 2 things that are really going to break through and really move the needle that may have been seen unsurmountable before, but now we're going to go get them? Let's declare those and get them in front of everybody. That's great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Mark, I see, says, I love these priorities, being the leader of the worst in the group. Can you work in step 2 before completing everything in step 1? Absolutely. These are not sequential. Once you get real clear on what those categories are, then you assign resources and make sure that you're working on those simultaneously. And I see Keith is saying, Amir, as I set my area for transformation, I need those around me to share that vision. Do you have specific advice on getting a shared and energizing vision? Absolutely. You know, I have this ebook on the website that you can download for free, and a 5-part audio series that goes into all of that. How can you get others energized and into action and all of that? So there's just a whole host of steps that, and I connect them to the book as well. And so Keith, thank you so much. Got it. All right, super. Very, very cool. So let's go ahead and get into the to life lesson from a GPS, life lessons from a GPS. This one is a short lesson. I think it's the shortest lesson in the book. So I'm going to cover it very quickly. You know, at the end of the day, I basically just, you know, it just comes down to one thing. Look, let me just go ahead and confess. When it comes to setting direction for organizations, I've gotten better over the years, and I take some pride in being able to do that. But when it comes to finding my physical way around, like physical directions, I am completely like unacceptable. I just don't know how to describe it. It's unacceptable. I cannot find my way around. So I've been married to my wife a little over 38 years now. And whenever we're going to her dad's house, you know, I can't find my way. And she's convinced that it's because I don't want to go to his house, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But here's the thing. I just can't find my way around. So, and my wife, and many of you know my wife, Connie, and she is just a wonderful blessing to me in so many ways. But, sometimes she gets a little impatient with me. She's like, look, you've been through here for like 100 times. How can you make the wrong turn? But what I've noticed is that my GPS doesn't do that. My GPS is very polite to me and very kind, in fact. Every single time I make the wrong move, she just says, recalculating, take the next left. And she's just the most gentle of, it's amazing to me. And so the point of this lesson is that oftentimes in life, when we make the wrong turn, now, whether it was because we made a mistake or there was a detour that we didn't really have any control over, and somehow we find ourselves off track, then we get into our own heads. And rather than saying, recalculating, what is that next step, we begin to sort of retrack our steps and retrace our steps and wonder, why did I do this? And now that I did this, now here's what's going to happen. Oh, regrets about the past, now the fear of the future and all of this. When in fact, all it takes is really that life lesson from the GPS. Be like the GPS. And here's what you need to do. And what I put down in recommended follow-up actions, I'm just going to skip there on page 106. There are two questions you want to ask yourself when you find yourself in that situation where you've hit a snag or something. The first thing is, what outcome am I committed to? What outcome am I committed to creating? Put yourself in touch with that, right? Because while you're dealing with whatever's right in front of you, you've got to do it in the context of the greater picture and what's really important to you, right? And when you get in touch with that, then what happens is you muster the energy to really deal with whatever you got to deal with. So that's question number one. Put yourself in touch, even if it takes just a few seconds of, wait a minute, what is my big why? What is my commitment? What is that transformative vision? The second question is, what is the most important step I could take next in creating that outcome? So there's a distinction between what is the most important next step and trying to figure everything out. See, usually when something happens, we are basically discombobulated about that situation, and we're dealing with it and playing whack-a-mole and all of this kind of stuff. But all the while, we're also frustrated and overwhelmed because we can no longer see the path to where we're going. So we may be excited about that endpoint, which is really great, is necessary. But at the same time, we're overwhelmed because we can't see how we're going to get there. Well, this is where I would encourage you to act like you're driving in the fog, right? If it's a foggy night and you're driving and you can't see too far out, you don't want to turn on your high beams and try to see what's going on, because you know what happens. You can't see anything then. Sometimes you just need fog lights. And this question has to do with the fog lights. What is the most important next step I need to take right now? And then do it. And then doing the next step and the next step. Sometimes you just need to get through the day. You don't need to be worrying about, what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Yes, it's important to start with that vision and to look back and sort of put those milestones in. But you know what? No transformation, no worthwhile transformation ever really turns out the way we planned it to begin with. Things happen. Detours come up, all of these kinds of things. So what happens is you ask those two questions, and those are the questions that your GPS is asking. Where are we going? Where are we right now? And what is the next turn? Boom. Right? And I know that your emotions will begin to mess with you and all of this. And I certainly am guilty of that, right? But I've got to step back and say, you know what, when that happens, where am I going? And what is the most important next step? And the third question that is sort of embedded somewhere in here, but it's not exclusively in the recommended follow-up actions, is who do I need to be? How do I need to generate myself? If I'm frustrated and all of that, am I going to be as effective in taking that step? So just center yourself for a moment. Who do I need to be? I need to be enthusiastic. I need to be hopeful. Show up as that when you are taking that step. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that I would suggest that you do. Here again, I would highly encourage you to look at the reflection questions, is there an area of your life where you are spending a lot of time dwelling on the past rather than accepting the present situation and getting going toward the future? So I guide you through the steps to identify some of those places where you can apply these life lessons from a GPS, and then go on to give you some recommended action steps that you can follow. Now, one very quick thing I will mention, and I would love to see your comments again. So if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in. Look, something I want you to consider is that oftentimes what takes us off track relative to our mission is all of those things that we have complaints about, right? So, this shouldn't be like this. Why did they do this? Why did this happen to me? And so something that I learned from, I think it was Jack Canfield, was that we don't complain about things that cannot be changed. You see, we only complain about things that can be changed. In other words, you've never complained about gravity. If you dropped something and broke it, you never complained about gravity, right? Because you know that that is something that cannot be changed unless you move to the moon or something, right? But the things that you do complain about are things that can be changed. In other words, you have not accepted them as an immovable object or as a situation that just cannot be changed. So if you accept something, then you work around it, you stop complaining about it. But until that happens, what you do is you continue to get frustrated and all of that because you feel like somebody ought to do something about it. And so next time you have a complaint in your mind because you hit a roadblock or something showed up that wasn't supposed to be there, by design, please know that this is something that something can be done about. Because if it's not, then your alternative is to accept it. It's like, look, this detour is here. This pandemic is here. This thing is here. You may not like it, but look, I've got to accept it as the way it is. That is my only starting point. And now I've got to go to where I want to go from where I am right now. So here again, life lessons from a GPS. Where are you going? Where are you now? What is the next step? That's it. And to deal with your emotions and that sort of thing, this is where I think it's really important for you to be plugged in to relationships, whether it's an individual relationship with a coach or a confidant, someone who cares about you, or a community like our On the Court leadership community that is there for you, because it's not just about learning about leadership, it's about that encouragement, it's about helping each other move right along. So let me pause here for a moment and see if you have any questions or comments that we need to address, that we want to address.
I don't think we have any questions or comments, but I did want to just let you guys know that I posted in the chat the ebook that you mentioned, Amir, the 5 practical steps to making your culture transformation stick. And I also posted a link to the 5-part audio course that goes with that, Transforming Your Workplace Experience. So those links are there for you guys.
Fantastic. Really great. Okay. Thank you so much, Naseem, for doing that. So any other questions or comments from anyone? Feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll give you the mic and go from there.
Yep, we've got a comment from John. John says, sometimes the turn or path you take is better for you than the turn or path you had originally planned. What can I learn from this path that I could not have learned from the path that I had planned? But you have to remain true to your values. So
such a wonderful comment here, John. It's so right, because I always say, you've got to, in organizations, you're much better off leading by principle rather than managing by rules. Because when you have a set of rigid rules, things have to be a certain way. Otherwise, you just don't know what to do. But if you have those principles and if you have those values and you stay true to them, then you get to flex and you get to do what you need to do in order to make things happen. For me personally, I can tell you nothing bad's ever happened to me. Now, many of you know stories of my life, and you say, well, wait a minute, Amir, I know of a lot of bad things that have happened to you, but let me tell you something, nothing bad's ever happened to me, because everything that seemed like a bad thing at the time turned out to be a blessing to me in the end. And so I completely agree. Sometimes the path that is in front of us that is different than our original one is even better. So, and that belief in itself, I think, makes a difference for us. All right, any other comments? And what's your reaction to what we were talking about? I mean, is this stuff practical, or are we talking some woo-woo stuff? Are we talking about things that can be applied in your life? Yeah, so Michael has raised his hand.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michael.
Got it. Okay. Now, yeah, I know when I'm unmuted. I just don't know when I'm muted again. No, I think this is absolutely practical. I think what I love about this series that we're going through is you get, this dose, this kind of this 1 hour dose in a week, and you have enough time to let it sink in, to let it really to kind of gel and really think about, like, how am I going to apply this? How do I apply this? And let's go apply it. Where at times, sometimes you go through a whole day session or a couple day session kind of thing, and you still can only walk away with a couple few things, and it's hard to change everything. But getting a dose like this is really is fantastic in that regard, where it can take like 1 or 2 things just out of this hour and say, I'm going to do that now, and we're going to go do this now and make it work. It's very, very, very inspiring.
Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate it. Yeah, and that's certainly our intention. And I see Mark is also saying these can easily be applied to our plant and process. How would you work at applying these to issues regarding staffing challenges? They seem a little less concrete, especially with this new changing workforce. Well, for me here, again, it goes back to your values and principles. So to me, it's like, when it comes to staffing issues, I'm assuming you're talking about people's performance and things like that. If our values are that we are going to treat people with respect and dignity, and we are going to be straight with them, but we're going to do it in a way that honors them and respects them, we deal with that in a very respectful fashion. But look, at the end of the day, sometimes people are on the wrong bus. Sometimes people are in the wrong seat on the bus, and we have to deal with that for their own good as well as the organizations. And so I think, again, just being true to our principles and values. And Mark says, staying, basically issues more around getting people to stay, when you have high turnover. And here, again, I would say that when it comes to the types of things that we're talking about, everything we're talking about contributes to creating a kind of environment that people want to stay. Now, if your compensation strategy is not is such that other companies are offering twice as much money or whatever, sure, extrinsic rewards make a difference. However, in most cases, people stay because of the intrinsic rewards. It's because they want to be around their leaders, because they feel like they're growing. They feel like they're being nurtured. They feel like they're being given opportunities, that they're part of something big. So all of those things are things that, as I work with my clients, we work through all of those things to say, look, how can we create an environment where people want to stay? So, and again, we can have some more conversations. Rosita says, extremely practical while inspirational. I have never been so excited to read a book. It's practical in work and life. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Rosita. I want to make a comment about what Michael was saying as well, about this sort of daily dose. And Nassim mentioned this about the on the court leadership forum that we are creating. We've been working on this for many, many months now, but this COVID-19 thing actually helped us with kind of accelerating some of the work that we have been doing. I've been making webinars and videos and so on and so forth. This is actually a membership site. So rather than basically just putting stuff out there that people say they like and they share and they don't really do anything about, we are aiming to say, okay, we're going to create a community And we're going to ask our members to put some skin in the game, if you will. So you're part of a community. And what we're going to do is we're going to share with you a bunch of different things. So every week, literally, you get either a video or a webinar or some kind of blog post or a group coaching, very much like this. And then you have some level of access to us to be able to say, hey, you know what, if you need some kind of a chiropractic adjustment, if you will, and what you got going on, you get in touch with the community. Myself, I'll be very actively involved in that. I can tell you that, as well as other community members. And so this is something that we've created. We've actually got the landing page up, and we haven't publicized this to anybody else. We wanted to share this with our book study members to begin with. So what we're going to do, Nassim, if you can just put that as well in the chat. What we're going to do is we're going to ask you to go there and put yourself on the waiting list. You're not committing to anything. It's just that if you have any interest in a forum like this, this basically, what we want to do is we want to make sure that, first of all, that you get the most up-to-date information before anybody else about the membership site. And there are some perks associated with that. Now, Nassim, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about that.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, if you guys get on the wait list before we launch, you'll be considered a founding member when we do launch. And we're having a founding member discount. So you won't be paying the regular price for the membership if you get on that waiting list. But we're really excited to share on the court leadership. It's something that we've been working on for a little while, and I think it's just, you guys are going to find so much value in it. And also, we really look forward to your feedback as we build it out, because it's a baby product right now. So we're hoping to get a lot of feedback from our members to make it really, really robust and to give you exactly what you need, basically.
Yeah, and we can share some more next time as well. And again, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, I don't want you guys to feel like, oh, we just kind of brought you guys into this book study so we can like sell you something. This thing is like, the cost of this is so minuscule compared to what you get. But we have a ton of content and all of that, but we're not going to just dump all of that on you. We have these different tracks depending on where you are in your leadership journey. We have different content and different ways that we're going to deliver that to make sure that we give you what you need in a timely manner. So anyway, put yourself on the waiting list and you'll get a lot more information. We have one question. We got a couple of minutes left. Matteo from Italy. Hey, great to have you here with us. He says, it is a beautiful example of the GPS. What do you think if different departments have to work together in a project? And Matteo, this is a really great question, right? Because this is kind of like being in the same car, but having two GPSs with two different addresses that, you know, like yours is trying to go over here and mine is trying to go over here. And we're getting all of these different questions. And so this is where I really encourage organizations that are collaborating to get together and get real clear where we're going. It may be a compromise. It may be, look, you want to go here, we want to go there. Why don't we go to this other third location or third objectives that meet all of our objectives? But it's extremely important, because if you got two organizations pulling people in different directions, it just doesn't work. You have to address that. And then the GPS technology works for you again. So thank you for asking that question. Appreciate it. So any other, so John also says people stay where and when their hearts and minds are appreciated. And again, some of you may be like new in your organization, or things may have changed and you still have time to make some changes. But at the end of the day, you've got to create that environment. And that's what the transformative leader is all about. When we talk about high commitment cultures, that's the kind of culture we want to create, where people just don't want to leave. But anyway, so it is 11:59 on the East Coast. What we're going to do is we're going to stop the recording in a moment and end the call officially. But I'm going to stay around, and Nassim and Naveed will be around as well. So please feel free. I don't want you to feel pressured, but if you want to stay with us and talk through some stuff, we're here for you, and we will have those conversations. I want to thank you again for joining, and I really appreciate this community, and I cannot wait to continue this same kind of dynamics with our on the court leadership, and hope to see you there. So otherwise, I will see you next week. All right, thank you so much.